guys. It's like the last one, but except for talking about heroes we hate, we talk about heroes we would love to see in the meta.
You know, I was actually
We
thinking
all
about
know
that. I
it's
rewatched the video. I'm starting to think I don't want any heroes in the meta. I'd prefer if it was an empty map with a payload, honestly.
That's about right. Yeah, that's about right. I mean, before the mech right click change, I would have said everyone just be McCree, but somehow Blizzard manages to take every skillful hero and somehow make them unskillful. It's incredible. It's a talent.
Speaking
honestly.
of payloads, by the way, do you think if Jeff Kaplan just came out and said the payload's gay, that
It was
people
gay,
would
everybody
actually
would
go
stay
on
on it. Yeah.
it? Yeah.
I've seen that post.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you made that meme. Sorry.
Good meme. Good meme. Yeah. Solid, like 8.5 out of 10. Would meme again. So speaking of cool intro, which heroes do we want to see in the meta? Which heroes do we like?
Oh wait, that
not
was the
hate?
intro. No.
That's it. No, that's it.
I would say I'd like to see Reinhardt, Ashe, Soldier 76. Trying to think of Ana. I'm okay with Ana being in the meta. Zenyatta and Lucio. Those are kind of like the ones I'd be okay with. That would give me the least amount of strokes.
So you'd be fine with everyone running that exact comp? That's like your
No,
dream Overwatch?
No, not that calm necessarily. Just having those characters be in the meta in some form.
Birdie, what about you?
Obviously Lucio, but I mean that's for obvious reasons. Like I remember back when we had that abysmal like 8-month to a year long Mercy meta, and I would just play Lucio in comp, and people would get so can you just play Mercy, please? Like it was to the point like that was back when I was legitimately just a one trick. Like I didn't know how to play anything else, and people would just be like, "Yeah," people were just like, play Mercy," and I'm just like, "No, I don't want to do that." And I never want to go back to that time because as soon as Lucio came back into the meta, it was like the greatest time I ever had in Overwatch, and I just like peak masters and everything. It was awesome.
Funny anecdote. Same thing happened with me, obviously. Everyone's like, can you play Mercy when Moira was meta? Can you play Moira? And I tried, and I felt I did okay. Like, I had a lot of healing stats and everything. I thought I was doing okay. Still lost the vast majority of my games. And looking at that, I kind of feel like I understand why people want Trick. Because even if you play meta heroes that people want you to play, doesn't mean you're going to win. Especially if it's support and you're just spamming heals. You can't heal stupid, so... But I think there's good reason for wanting Lucio in the meta, simply because his kit is so unique, right? Like, the ability to give speed boost gives the whole game a different dynamic versus, you know, potentially peak fights or slow push with a Reinhardt/tank comp. This is why I also like seeing Lucio in the meta, simply because of that speed boost dynamic that no other hero can really bring.
Like, I want to go back to a Lucio Zen meta, because that junk was fun. Like,
It was a
this
really
person's
fast way to play the
Discord,
game.
this guy's Discord, and you just speed onto him. Oh, man, it was great.
I feel like people must hate Zenyatta playing tank, to be honest, because we've seen tanks melt just because of Discord. It's crazy. Happened to me too. I tried to flex onto Zarya today. Just like my Reinhardt drops the shield for a second, I melt. Like I'm just gone. It's crazy. It's way easier to talk about which heroes you don't want in the meta versus those that you actually do.
I mean, there's far fewer characters I'd like to be in the video game than there are. So.
You're not wrong.
I feel like vanilla Overwatch plus Ana was like a pretty good overall experience.
Yeah, it honestly was, man. When they introduced Ana, we're like, you know what? I feel pretty good about new heroes, and then it just went downhill.
Yeah, and then Sombra, Doomfist.
And then Sombra happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then Doomfist happened. Wait, who was after Sombra, actually? I don't know. Orisa, right? Is that who?
Sure.
Orisa,
I think so.
If we had to decide between Orisa and Reinhardt, which one would you guys prefer?
Reinhardt. Orisa, man, I love Orisa in theory, but Jesus, it just doesn't work, man. She doesn't bring enough presence.
I see that.
Because like Reinhardt, you can shift in and swing your hammer, and if you're nanoed, everything dies.
No. Look, guys, if you're playing Reinhardt, just don't like rip the shift key off your keyboard, please.
Tape down the right click and just like
don't
walk
ever
forward.
touch that key, please.
I also think what makes Orisa really annoying to play against in certain cases is the hold ability. Because I'm not inherently against the idea of a mini grab, but the fact that it grabs you, you stop moving, then it pulls you, and then you still cannot move after being dropped, and like there's this whole like momentum thing going on where you can't move for such a long time in such an annoying fashion. This is why I would prefer Reinhardt.
I honestly think it would be more fun to play against if we were actually more effective.
Yeah.
I'd
Because
rather
like right
deal
now,
with
the
that.
mini grab, it's just like it just stops you for a little bit. It's not really a great ability
It's an
unless you're,
annoyance more
you
than
know,
anything.
yeah, it's an annoyance. It's not like it's like, oh man, there's an Orisa, time to like walk for 30% of the game.
Mm.
I just wish you were more useful.
Yeah, I'd rather go up against an Orisa than a Reinhardt, knowing like Orisa's ultimate is very underwhelming. Her ability's okay, but it's like, okay, a Reinhardt, like, get Earth Shattered, dude. Yeah, I don't want to deal with that. I'd rather deal with an Orisa.
Let's move down the hero pool like that, though. I think. What do you guys think about Winston and D.Va? Because I personally, especially with Lucio in the meta, I do like seeing Winston and D.Va. Maybe not necessarily in my time when Dive was meta. I actually hate the game as a Zenyatta player because I could never trust my other healer if they were Lucio to actually peel for me. But in theory, when I started 6-stacking with my friends, that worked way better. And then I actually really liked playing Dive. But considering most people are playing solo, and I hated playing solo against Dive, what do you think about D.Va and Winston in that case?
I like playing both of them. Especially, actually, I probably equally like playing both of them. I'm good at both, but D.Va is kind of broken, and
I mean, considering she was
Depends what
not
she
as
looks like.
broken.
After nerfs, like
That's what I'm
because they're
saying,
nerfing
like,
your DM.
make her balanced, and then maybe the game would actually be more fun.
I think the skill ceiling, the skill floor is just going to be higher for her, to be honest, to get that value that you can get these days with very little effort.
D.Va's a weird one because you're right. Her skill ceiling is ridiculously high, but her skill floor is also like stupid low, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because you could just literally spam all of her abilities and you're getting value.
Yeah.
Like an insane amount of value with little effort.
But if she was balanced, would you guys like to see Winston and D.Va in the meta?
Absolutely. I think that's a far better meta. Like
it was a fun meta.
I'll take that over Hammond too.
Overall, like the Mercy meta was not that bad once I actually realized I need to play other shit besides Lucio. And that was when I even started playing Mercy a little bit just because I wanted to win games. But like every hero in that meta is in my hero pool, and it was actually really fun when I learned it. But man, it was still kind of annoying going up against like release Valkyrie Mercy.
But this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about what we do want to see. Because everyone's going to be so mad about us always being negative. This is not what the community needs.
I'd be less negative if the game sucked less.
Totally.
Okay, but the reason I'm personally going for Winston and D.Va over someone like Hammond is because Hammond has the same problem I see with Orisa, where it's just really annoying to play against him. Like, this hold ability is really annoying, and the same thing with Hammond. The entire kit is just annoying to play against. Like, he's just spinning around, more difficult to hit, doesn't have a head-to-hit box, and the whole being juggled by him is also really annoying. This is why I would not want to see him in the meta from a, like, fun perspective. That's something people really didn't seem to understand. We talked about it from, like, a fun perspective, not a, like, balanced perspective. Let's move on to the DPS. Which of the DPS would we like to see in the meta? Definitely no Widowmaker. We talked about last time.
Okay, I want Soldier back so bad.
Yep, absolutely. 100%.
I remember when Soldier was meta. Soldier was one of my most played heroes on console when I played on console back in Triple Tank meta. It was so much fun. He did so much damage, and it wasn't even that bad. It was just he was over. Like, they nerfed his damage by, like, what, 1? And then it just took him right out. And I'm like, really?
But what makes Soldier being in the meta, like, how does that make the game more fun?
I think it's because it's not like Widowmaker or characters. Most of your DPS, they can put out a bunch of damage over very small amounts of time. He has good damage, but it's all spread out. Like, it's very consistent. And for a lot of reasons, that's bad in a lot of metas, which is probably why he's not meta a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. But, like, you have defense against it because it's not just like, oh, I'm dead now.
Like, I prefer heroes that require tracking more than, like, flicking, like McCree and Widow.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, they're just inherently better than Soldier, that I have to, like, if I'm actually trying on a game, I have to play them over Soldier or Tracer, just right now in this current meta. And, like, that's what I'm saying is, like, I prefer Soldier over those heroes that are currently in the game right now that everyone plays. So I want to go back to being able to have the choice between them two instead of just this one's inherently better.
Without gravitating towards Dive in its entirety too much, what do you guys think about Tracer Genji?
No Genji, no Tracer.
You wouldn't want to see them?
Nope.
Really? The Tracer one trick doesn't want Tracer back?
I'm not a dude. I switched to Ashe. I don't know what you're talking about.
So really,
honestly, I only played Tracer because she was really, really good. Like that. I mean, she's fun to play, but there's characters I like way more than her.
I feel like between Tracer and Sombra, Tracer's the lesser evil. It's easier to fight a Tracer because she makes noise. Like, both of them, obviously, they screw me as a Zenyatta. There's no doubt about that. But Tracer at least makes noise. She telegraphs her moves more than Sombra because she's invisible. And EMP obviously eradicates, like, most of my HP, so it's really difficult to fight.
Yeah.
I find this interesting because I really like playing Tracer, and apparently...
Oh, no, I love playing her.
Fun,
I'm just able to recognize that a meta with her is just, it's not good. It's not fun.
Okay, so one hero that we left out that I put as background gameplay at the end of my last video, we're just bitching for 15 minutes, was Mei. What do you guys think about Mei in the meta?
I don't know why you're talking to me.
No. Look, okay, here's the thing about Mei. I'm okay with her being I'm okay with her being good on certain maps because then that gives her a place in the game. But making it so, like, if the devs go out of the way to make Mei just inherently good and meta and like an absolute must pick on every game, that would be one of the most cancerous things you would see in the game by far. I like where she's at right now, where it's like you can run her on like Lijiang Control Center, Hanamura First Point, and it works. But dear God, a meta with Mei would just be a nightmare.
Yeah, dude. But how would they put her in the meta? How do you think they'd do that?
I mean, like, you put anything in the meta by just buffing it to ridiculous levels.
I know, but what would they buff?
Imagine she did like 175 damage per body shot on the right click.
I don't like talking about this.
Or imagine if her cooldowns are shorter than what they are now.
Yeah.
That would...
Oh, dude, Ice Block being on a shorter... I'd cry.
Ice Block and Ice Wall, like, imagine if that was on a shorter cooldown. It'd be a nightmare to try to play against. That's what I'm saying.
What you said at the beginning there, Birdie, where in an ideal world, we would love to see a game where we have to play certain compositions according to the map pool, right? It's like we'll play on Lijiang Tower. We're going to start putting out the heroes that make sense for that. Versus something like a, what is it called again? The payload map, right? Like, payload versus control plays very differently and often asks for different hero sets. The problem, as much as I would like to see that, as much as I have done that with my 6-stack for a short period of time before the meta started to crystallize again, the problem with that is the game doesn't really facilitate that. It doesn't push players towards becoming sufficiently skilled enough with a bunch of heroes to make that happen. So, of course, I think we all would agree that we'd love to see a game where that is the case. I don't think this ever will be the case, simply because our community is already used to the idea of, I have the most success just one-tricking my hero, which is why the whole idea of like having meta heroes is kind of what we're talking about here, instead of just being like, well, if every hero was viable, that would be ideal, right?
No.
I don't think every hero should be viable anyway.
Oh yeah, I don't agree with that either.
Yeah,
like,
fuck man.
Like, the thing is you know, you got your one tricks, the ones who want to play freaking Reaper on Watchpoint Gibraltar of all things.
Yeah.
You know, you'll run into people like that all the time, but if that's the hero they're good at and they are legitimately not good at anything else, I'd rather have them play that. Regardless of all that, like, when you think about the proper compositions to run on each map, you're talking about at the highest level of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Which not everybody is at. And, you know, I'll talk about how people just straight up don't know how to play Overwatch all the time. But that's why there's different skill ceilings anyway. And I don't think every single hero should be good at every single level of the game, or even at the highest level of the game. Not every hero should be good, because that you could end up with a situation where they're just a nightmare to play against at the lower elos. Like, a good example I can think of is Beta Bastion. If anyone played, did you guys play during the beta?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, the Bastion during the beta. He was terrible against higher, like, players that were understanding the game very quickly and knew you could just go around him and kill him. But at lower levels of the game, he was an absolute nightmare to deal with for people. And that's where you run into a situation where it's like, okay, imagine if they kept Bastion's kit the same way, and they just buffed him until he was good at the higher levels too, he would be an absolute monster at lower elos at every level of the game except the highest. So that's where I think like not every hero should be viable in the first place.
But the difference in this discussion is that we were talking about, what's fun. Like the reason we wouldn't want to see Symmetra Torbjorn being overall viable meta picks is because they'd be really unfun to play against. Throwing turrets around, it should have its place as they did before, but the devs going out the way to try and make them more overall viable is a mistake, because I think heroes should fill a niche, or niche, whatever you want to say, and not have to be like force them to try and be overall viable, because we get into these balance issues. And when I talked about balance a while ago, I had this like big video talking about hero balance. A lot of people linked me to a video talking about why buffing is better than nerfing, and that was in relation to a fighting game. And I just think, like, to kind of close out the video, the reason I don't think buffing over nerfing works in Overwatch is because, contrary to a fighting game where every character kind of just like is viable or not viable depending on how powerful they are on their own merit, heroes in Overwatch interact with each other in a much more connected fashion. So like when we are in a game where McCree is not meta, something like Pharah can be meta, and then you buff McCree where he's more overall viable, like we've seen with his right-click buff, suddenly Pharah has a much harder time, because that's another hit scan in the game that, besides being overall viable with that right-click spam, can also take it out of the sky. So if you can't just indefinitely buff heroes into the meta, because if you buff something, it makes something else less viable, and you get in this weird situation where you just have to constantly buff, and you will still never
power creep.
Yeah, power creep. You will never reach this equilibrium where everything is viable because of how interconnected Overwatch as a game is. It just doesn't work, especially because, we can swap heroes all the time. That's the means of countering. That's supposed to be how we're playing it, just we're not playing it because the game never taught us to. So that's really like the big thing, I would say.
With a lot of the new Blizzard has even said this actually, with a lot of the new heroes they've been adding, it's a lot of like Moira, for instance. You either heal or you do damage, and your ultimate, it does both. So, like, where's the play and counterplay for that kit? There really isn't any when you think about it. Like, her kit's so simplistic and just drawn out with numbers from the dev team is what it feels like. Like, yeah, these numbers will make her balanced. And then, whatever happened to, like, release Overwatch where you got McCree's flashbanging over Reinhardt's, but a good Reinhardt can look up to anticipate the flashbang, and then McCree can flashbang underneath them. Like, there's no counterplay anymore to anything, I feel like.
On a mechanical level.
Yeah. I wish they would add more heroes that bring that back, which Ashe kind of did a little bit.
I don't think that you can really do that because of their basic idea of, like, we don't want to have heroes that essentially fill the same role in just slightly different ways. Because the base game already kind of did that, right? Where we had almost all the roles filled that we needed. And then Ana kind of brought this long-range healing that we didn't have before. And I would argue that at this point the game was maybe not perfect, but pretty well kitted out when it comes to the heroes that we need in the game for it to be competitive and have variety. And every hero they add on top of that kind of just exists for the sake of existing. And that's why they have all these weird mechanics, right? Like Sombra just... There was no need for a hero that silences other characters, but they did it because it was unique and no other hero did that yet, and now we are stuck with a hero that's really, really anti-fun for the one on the other side. Same thing with Doomfist, kind of same thing with Hammond, and really, there's not much else you can add to this formula of Overwatch that would serve this basic need of, we need this in the game for the sake of variety or whatever, if you don't start repeating mechanics. Now, what sucks is that, as much as I would love for us to come to like some positive conclusion of like, we'd love to see all these heroes in the meta, and there are heroes we do prefer seeing over others, which is what we talked about today. At the end of the day, I mean, not only is it easier to talk about things you hate versus things that you would like to see, it's just that something that's fun to one person is really not fun to another person. Like, if you play Sombra, it's probably really funny to you to see a Pharah just drop off the map because she can't fly anymore and being hacked. But to that Pharah, it's really not fun. And I think the idea to make that video was really nice. It's just that where it ended up being was not at all where I expected it to go. And as Birdie said, it kind of ended up being depressing. But before we go on and even more depressing, I think we should just call it, because people are going to be like, you're so negative!
Yeah, this discussion made me realize how inherently flawed Overwatch is. Oh no.
I don't know if it's inherently flawed. I think it's just like Cliff said, it's such a complex system that changing anything ripples down in ways that we can't really see too well.
Yeah.
So I think anything they do, they don't really know the full implications of. And since we've been doing this for a couple of years now, it just turned into a giant mess.
Like these
I don't know if there's there's no way to really fix that. I don't know if it should be fixed because having a complex game is what makes it fun.
Like these armor nerfs are going to have huge implications that I don't think a lot of people will see coming.
Yeah.
Just because of one little thing, like it changes the entire. It's going to change the entire game. I think
that happens all the time with balance patches. That's why it's so difficult to anticipate what the next meta is going to be, because of that very thing. And that's why I think Overwatch League is actually kind of doing us a service where they kind of figure all this stuff out for us, and we know, like, hey, this is like the optimal way of playing this. And I think there's merit to suggesting that for your team to do, but if they don't know about why they're doing it, there's obviously not much of a point. They're just going to play it wrong and everything. But still, I feel like if everyone just kind of studied Overwatch League, that would be a good supplement to what the game doesn't teach us about how it's meant to be played in an effective fashion. Not necessarily in a fun fashion, but in a more effective way. Nate, you have to say something. Nate, you have to say something.
I've been looking. I'm telling you, I'm looking at so much macaroni cheese you wouldn't believe.
Dude, it's like the moment we tried to make a video with a more positive note, Nate just like, nope, I'm out of here. I'm just gonna buy macaroni cheese.
Listen, I woke up. I came here looking for a comp game because I hate myself. And I walked in to a fucking studio recording. Like, I don't know what you want me to do, all right?
All right, you know what? On that note, we're going to go play some competitive now. So thank you, everybody, so much for watching. Don't forget to drop us a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you want to see more. And hit that bell notification to be notified of all the videos coming out from the likes of us. Also, Brody's working on getting a new microphone. Thanks again for watching. And we hope to see you guys next time.
Don't worry, Brandon Campbell, I got you. New microphone coming.